This is a video about economic theory in America. This was originally done in class on September 21st, a Monday. This is a recap of what we talked about that day. So the United States is a capitalist economy. It has always been. And if you ask people about that today, oftentimes it will be usually described in opposition to communism. Um, Communism emerged after the invention of capitalism, and it's usually the source to which Americans point as what we are not going to be. You see these kind of almost comedic interpretations of how evil Americans believe communism to be. Major wars have been fought by the United States throughout history. Hundreds of thousands of people have died, and the idea of fighting against the idea of communism, even spreading in other countries. But why? Why is the United States a capitalist economy? There's nothing in the Constitution that specifically says anything about the economy other than Article 1, Section 8, that just gives Congress the power to collect taxes and to regulate commerce both between the states and with other countries. Now, this inclusion of the power to regulate commerce between states was more of a central power given to the federal government just so that it would have power over the states in some form. This in no way established what the national economy would be. A brief history of capitalism in what is now the United States is that as soon as Europeans arrived in the Americas, it was in pursuit of capitalist expansion. So most of Europe and England was in some form of a capitalist economy where the pursuit of further wealth was kind of the driving force behind most business decisions, right? So the American colonies were made in a pursuit of wealth. They were a business opportunity. The Jamestown colony was sponsored by a company in England. They sent people over to try to find gold or other resources or just to survey the land to see the potential for farming. So it was a way to make money. Even the Mayflower colony, people who moved permanently into what was then this new world, were looking for both religious freedoms from persecution and then economic freedom as well. So the ability to farm and be self-sufficient as a community and not be burdened with the tax impositions of living in England at the time. The colonies had the ultimate combination of the basic elements of capitalism. They had capital, which is in multiple forms. So capital could both be actual money to start up a business and then other resources that are necessary to run that business. In that time, that would be land to farm, land to look for, again, gold in, and land to grow things and thus to sell. They also had a free labor source in slaves from famously 1619 onward. They were able to combine these two things and potentially create a lot of new wealth because they could farm land, not have to pay the people that were doing the farming, and then sell the product for a profit. The men who ultimately came together that we know as the founding fathers, all of these men made a lot of money in the colonial economy. Now, with some exceptions, most of them came from money. They were born wealthy and they became wealthier through their lives through this system. But it's important to note that all of them were wealthy people in this system and they did not want to change this system when they created a new country. Now, when these people talked about freedom, when they wrote about it in the Declaration of Independence, and when they wrote about it in the Constitution, they were talking about these grand ideals of freedom, but they were also implying this idea of freedom from oppression. That has been founded in the notion that they were unfairly taxed, that as a colony, they were not totally free of the burden of the colonial power in England. So they wanted to continue in this economic system in which they made a lot of money, but also then not have to be burdened by the taxes they were sending off to England. So their freedom often meant economic freedom as well, freedom to make even more money and be free of those restrictions. Much in the same way that Thomas Jefferson was a wealthy person looking to be free of the tax burdens and paying taxes that he didn't want to and complying with regulations and tariffs that he did not want to that were imposed by the British government. He would much rather run his own government where he got to decide which taxes and restrictions he would want, much like the modern figure Jeff Bezos that's been pointed out. A bit of a stretch, I think, in the comparison, but I still think it's funny, so I left it in there.